We continue today with the 8th chapter of the book of Hosea. Yesterday's chapter described Bnei Israel's feeble attempt, their fake attempt at doing tshuva and returning to God. And if you remember, these chapters are understood. Hosea is living at the time of cataclysm, the destruction of the northern kingdom, the Aseret HaShvatim, their exile, and that's what he is talking about in these chapters. El chikra shofar kanesher al beit Adonai. Yan avruvriti vial torati pashu. Put a ram's horn to your mouth like an eagle over the house of God, because you have transgressed my covenant and be faithless towards my Torah. Torah mean teaching is oftentimes the way it's translated in the Tanakh. Strange images here. Why the ram's horn? Is that supposed to be because war is coming, which is generally why the ram's horn would be sounded? People are coming in battle. The nesher is interesting also. We know about the nesher, about the eagle. Al kanfei nesharim, right? We go on the wings of eagles. God took Bnei Israel out that way. He talks about in the song of Hazinu, Kenesher Yair Kino, that God carries Bnei Israel faithfully. But here, that eagle, it's just the other. It's the horror that's coming in to attack. Just one other thing that's said there, the words Beit Hashem in that verse are interesting because this is a prophecy to the northern kingdom. Yes, Hosea has said over the last number of verses, don't, Yehuda, you will be punished as well. But that's not going to be for 150 years. This is to the northern kingdom, to Menachem ben Gadi and Pekach ben Remaliahu and all of the last kings and the horrors of the idolatry of the northern kingdom. So commentaries say that Beit Hashem here doesn't refer to the Beit HaMikdash, but rather it refers to the entirety of the land of Israel. Continuing verse 2, Li Yizhaku Elohai Yida'anucha Yisrael. Israel cries out to me, God, we are devoted to you. We know you. Zanach Yisrael Tov, Oyev Yirdefu. Israel has rejected that which is good. Don't tell me that you're devoted to me. Don't tell me that you're faithful to me. Don't tell me that you know me. Not true. The enemy will chase after you. Heim himlichu v'lo mimeni. Heisiru v'lo yadati. Kaspa muzava masu lahem atzabim leman yikaret. They've made kings, but I didn't sanction these kings. So yes, the first king of the northern kingdom, Yeravam ben Nevat, God, his prophet Achiyah Shiloni went and poured the flask of oil over him. But we're at the point of the kingdom, as we've mentioned, where kings are reigning for 2 years or 6 months or 3 months. Lots of coups, lots of killings, lots of that. God is not the one who's making these kings. This is coming from Bnei Yisrael, right? I didn't make their sarim, their officers, their gold and their silver. That's what they made for themselves as images, right? This is what the God is not me, the God is idolatry, and the God is gold and silver. We're in verse 5. Pasuk Hey, Zanach eglech shomron chara pibam ad matai lo yuchlu nikayon. I reject your calf, Samaria. I'm furious with them. Will they never be capable of purity? And of course, seems to refer to the egel here, is the egle zahav that was placed by Yeravam ben Nevat in 2 temples up in Dan and in Beit El in order to keep the Jewish people, the northern kingdom, his people, from being aligned with the Malchut David. They're scared they're going to go to Yerushalayim, they're going to go to the Beit HaMikdash, they're going to leave him behind, his paranoia. And so, the egel, the calf, is this major symbol for that terrible error that he made. Ki Misrael v'hu charash asahu v'lo Elohimhu ki Shivavim yeh egel shomron. This was Israel's undoing. It was only, it was the work of a charash, but it's the work of a craftsman. It's not a god. No, the calf of Shomron will be reduced to splinters. And we think back in that verse, all the way back into the Torah, when the original golden calf is made by Aaron. And the people say, Eile Elohecha Yisrael, these are your gods of Israel, Asher Alucha mi Mitzrayim, who took you out of Egypt. So here too, right, God is saying to them, all these hundreds of years later, with the 2 golden calves, the one in Beit El, the one up in Dan, these are not your gods. This is not an Elohim. This is just a statue that will be smashed into smithereens. Kiruach Yisrael v'sufatai tzoru kama ein lo tzemach bli yaseh kemach ulai yaseh zarim Yivla uhu. They sow wind and they reap whirlwind. right? The stalks are devoid of ears. They yield no flour, right? And if they yield no flour, strangers shall devour it, right? That all of their work is going to come for naught. You're sowing wind. You're not going to be successful in your harvest. You have no food. You're not going to be able to defeat your enemies. Nivla Yisrael. Israel either is swallowed up or bewildered. Ata hayuva goyim kikli ein chayfetz bo. You have become like an unwanted vessel amongst the nations. There's nothing that you have to offer. You're unwanted. It's one thing when you had, moral clarity. It's one thing when you had great wealth. But if you have no crops, if you have nothing to trade, and you have no strength, you have no potency, you have no power, you're a nothing. Like a lonely wild donkey, they have gone up to Assyria. Ephraim has courted friendship. Ephraim, who goes to all different, the northern kingdom. Ephraim tries to make treaties with Mitzrayim, makes treaties with Aram, makes treaties with Ashur, with Assyria, to help him in his fight with the Davidic dynasty, to help him with other regional neighbors. When over and over again, we see this especially in the book of Yeshaya, who again lived a contemporary, but younger, or offers his prophecy later than Hosea. Over and over again, not alliances with other nations. Trust in God. And of course, that's the great moment with Chizkiyahu and Yeshaya, where Chizkiyahu, the Assyrians come in and they say, who do you trust? You're trusting the Egyptians, you're trusting in your God. The king of Assyria, Sancherib, is the God of all, and he will destroy you. And of course, Chizkiyahu prays to God, and between Chizkiah and Yeshaya, because of a lack of, at that point, a full trust in God and an alliance with others, the miracle happens and the Assyrians have to leave. We're in verse 10, Pasuk Yud. And while they are trying to make alliances with other nations, right, their numbers will diminish due to the problems and the masa, the burden of their kings and officers, right? Their kings and officers are getting them into bad treaties. They're in a desperate situation. So the Bnei Israel are not going to benefit from that. And where's the, right, where is this in a sense coming from? God's anger and rage? Much of it comes from all of the altars. Ephraim, you could have been doing positive things. You could have taken that the money that you made and everything that you had and built houses of worship to God. You could have helped the poor, but what did you multiply? Altars. That's what you multiply, and it comes back, something we talked about a long time ago, during the reign of Yeravam II, which is right before he reigns for, if I remember, about 50 years. Bnei Israel are very successful militarily. It's when Prophet Yonah lived during his time, back in, and it's understood as being sort of the last straw, and we'll get to that more during in the book of Amos, where Bnei Israel have great wealth, and instead of using that great wealth to help the homeless, or as they're called, the way the unhoused, or people who have become addicted to opioids, or et cetera, what do they do with all the extra money? They keep it for themselves, the wealthy. They buy a 14th Porsche, or whatever it might be. Ech tov lo Rubei Torati Kamozar Nechshavu. The many teachings, all the Torah that I wrote for him is foreign to him. It's zar. Zivchei havhavai yizbechu vasar vayochelu Adonai lo ratzam ata yizkor avonam yifkod chatotam hema Mitzrayim yashuvu. When they bring their sacrifices to me, it's just flesh for them to eat. God doesn't accept their sacrifices. What's going to be remembered are their sins. Their sins will be punished back to Egypt with them, right? God is saying, I forgot you. I'm sending you back. I'm no longer with you. And of course, we talked about in this previous chapter that before Yeshaya, famously in his opening chapter, before Yirmiyahu, I believe in chapter 7 or chapter 9, talks about God doesn't want your sacrifices. He wants moral clarity. He wants goodness. He wants faithfulness. Hosea said that in these chapters before either of them did. Vayishkach Yisrael tosehu. Israel has forgotten its maker. Vayiven hechalot. And they build temples. Vihuda harba arim bitzurot. Vishilachti eish be'arav. V'achla et armenoteha. And Yehuda, right? You built many fortified cities, but I will set fire to the cities and it will consume the fortresses. Again, as we've seen in the last number of chapters, Yehuda, the enemies might not be coming for you yet, but don't think that you're going to escape unscathed. You too have gone against God's messages, and your time will come will come as well. And so here another chapter, another sad chapter, describes very much the imminent destruction of the kingdom of Israel. And again, many of the same themes that we've seen: the lack of the taking advantage of the poor, the horrors towards the idolatry, the lack of trust in God. And here, as we've seen over the last number, there have been a number of images taking us back to Egypt. We talked yesterday about the images of the Yad and the Zroah, which returns us back to Egypt, the Yad Chazakah and the Zroah and the Tuyah that God uses in order to bring Israel out of Egypt, whatever those things mean that God's bringing them. And here too, right? It's like you're going back to Egypt. You've forgotten me, and it's like, I'll forget you. I'm going to send you back to where you belong before our relationship ever began. And so another disheartening chapter that we know, unfortunately, comes true with the, not much after the time Hosea is speaking, the destruction of Shomron, the destruction of the Ephraim, the destruction and the exile of the northern kingdom.